Hello, and welcome to today's Opt to Thrive Manage Your Mind Mindful Moment.
Welcome to Opt to Thrive, your go-to podcast for women's wellness in midlife, designed to educate, support, and inspire you to live your very best life. And now your host, Dr. Karina Sims.
So, I have posted on social media a few times now about being a morning person. One of the gifts I consider of menopause has been that I wake up naturally really quite early these days, generally somewhere between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Looking back, I suppose I've always been a bit of a morning person in that I've always preferred to exercise first thing in the morning. Sunrise was never really my thing. I mean, I thought it was pretty, but it wasn't particularly the time I really wanted to open my eyes. But that was most likely because I spent a lot of years not really respecting my sleep. I actually remember saying the words, "I'll sleep when I'm dead." Trying to cram as much as I possibly could into each day, especially after having children, and then, you only get that few precious hours after they go to bed kind of to yourself. And so really trying to squeeze as much as I could into those hours. I did have a very typical pattern of staying up late most nights, and then on the weekends or when I could, I would have a sleep in. It turns out that this is one of the absolute worst things that you can do for sleep. In fact, there's a term for this called social jet lag, because it can make you feel a bit jet lagged, and it can increase all kinds of health risks, from metabolic dysfunction like weight gain and diabetes to increased risk of heart disease and mental health issues. Not to mention, actually, as I said, feeling like you have jet lag, so you're feeling tired and not quite all there cognitively. It is much better for our overall health to have regular sleep-wake times, even on the weekends. But now that I've sorted out my sleep and I'm used to waking up at a time I would have once considered horrific, I really do enjoy this time of morning. I've gotten used to it, and I start my day off by either going to the gym or going for a walk on most days. My morning walks especially are pretty spectacular, and I really do love watching the sun come up, listening to the birds singing, and just the overall feeling of watching the world wake up. There's something really peaceful about it. It kind of reminds me just to take a deep breath. Often we spend a lot of our time holding our breath without even realizing that that's what we're doing. It also really helps me start my day feeling really clear in the head, energized, ready to take on whatever's going to come my way that day. And here in the Riverland, we are just so fortunate to have such beautiful sunrises and sunsets pretty much most days of the year. In fact, when I dragged my husband across to Europe and we got to take in one of the spectacular Santorini sunsets, he wasn't impressed. He said, "We can get that in the Riverland most days of the year." And you know what? It does really compare. It really does. But because I posted a bit about becoming a morning person, I have been asked several times, how is it possible to become a morning person? I've been asked it enough. I thought I would have a little deeper look into it. And so that's the theme of today's mindful moment. Now, it turns out we all have something called a chronotype. This is a subjective feeling, so your own personal feeling, your opinion about what time of the day that you feel most awake and most productive. So essentially, it's your personal preference. This is different than our circadian rhythm, which is our natural sleep-wake cycle that's synced with the day-night cycle. Some people might feel really awake as soon as they get up in the morning, kind of bounce out of bed, ready to go. We all know those people. Can be a little bit annoying. And you know what? I think I might be one of those people now. But then those people might feel a bit tired and ready for bed early in the evening. There are other people who take longer to feel really awake in the morning, and then they feel more awake later as the day goes. And then there are the kind of people that are in between, who feel most alert in the middle of the day. Now, our chronotype is mainly dictated by our genes. It's thought that about 9% of us are extreme morning people, and about 8% of us are extreme evening people. But the majority of us fall somewhere in between. My chronotype was probably always somewhere towards the morning type, but as I said, I spent a lot of years working against it. Settling into it, accepting it, and listening to my body has been a real game changer for me after the quality of my sleep was disrupted, as it often is for women in this midlife transition period. So I've had a look into whether it is possible to change your chronotype. It doesn't appear that we can really change it, but it does look like we can modify it. And for most of us, this isn't too much of an issue. But there are some of us, those who are at the extremes, that it actually can be hazardous to your health to make really big changes. It looks like those who have more evening tendencies are more at risk of things like cognitive impairments, like reduced alertness, reduced attention, memory, and executive functions like decision-making and organization, increases in irritability, mood disturbance, and overall lower well-being. But if you're somewhere in the majority and you want to alter your sleep habits to become a morning person, the best advice is to start by making consistent small changes in your sleep-wake schedule. So moving your bedtime back by 15-minute increments until you can comfortably fall asleep at the time that you would like to, which should be about 7 to 8 hours before the time that you would like to be awake. This slow adjustment just helps your body clock adapt a bit easier. So when that 15 minutes becomes more comfortable, then you can move it back another 15 minutes and another 15 minutes until you get to where you want to be. Because our brain relies on light and darkness for our circadian rhythm, then exposing ourselves to bright light first thing in the morning can be really helpful in making the transition to an earlier wake time. This could be helped by having your curtains or blinds open so that you can take in that natural first light. My room is pretty dark through the night with the blinds, but that subtle change around the blinds is what often wakes me most mornings. Doing exercise first thing in the morning apparently also helps in becoming a morning person, especially if you are out in that natural light first thing. Interestingly, exercising in the evening can do the exact opposite. I do love, as I said, and have loved for as long as I can remember, to exercise first thing in the morning. I feel energized, I feel ready for the day, but my husband, on the other hand, prefers to exercise at the end of the day before dinner. The last thing that I feel like doing after working a long day is exercising, so I've always found this to be really odd, especially given that he works hard on the farm all day, and then he goes to the gym. But now knowing about chronotypes, this makes perfect sense to me. It also makes it make more sense that I'm wanting to go to bed earlier than he does as well. In fact, there was a time it had gotten so bad, I absolutely could not keep my eyes open at night when we were watching a program on TV. He would get so annoyed. And we went through a stage where he would refuse to tell me what happened when I missed part of the show because I had fallen asleep. Now that my sleep is sorted, though, and I keep a pretty consistent sleep-wake schedule, this rarely happens anymore, thank goodness. Because it was really frustrating not knowing what had happened exactly and just trying to catch up. Now, in the rabbit hole, I also read an interesting theory that evolutionarily some people are programmed to be up later at night. They think because of the need to protect the tribe from predators. So those people were likely the protectors of the tribe. And then those people who are programmed to wake up earlier was thought that they were programmed to be up early to get the work done. Interesting. I don't know. Anyway, that was today's mindful moment. I'd love to know how you go if you decide to give altering your chronotype a go. Drop me a DM or send me a text. Love to hear. I hope you've enjoyed this Manage Your Mind mindful moment. And if you have, and you can think of someone else who might enjoy it, please pass it on. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast to make it more visible to those who might get something out of it too. Have a great week, everyone. And until then, I hope you opt to thrive.
The Opt to Thrive podcast is designed for information purposes only and is not engaged in the giving of medical advice. The information provided on the podcast should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. In no way should the information provided by Opt to Thrive be considered medical advice, and at all times the advice of a medical professional should supersede recommendations from Opt to Thrive. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, you should consult your healthcare provider. The views expressed in this podcast are purely that of Dr. Sims and do not in any way reflect those of the institutions she contracts her medical services to.
Thank you for listening to Opt to Thrive. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate and share the podcast. You can visit our website at opttothrive.com and leave a comment for any subjects you would like to hear more about.